Welcome to the Get Fit Guys, quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield, and I'm the Get Fit Guy. In today's episode, you're going to learn how to live longer by gaining muscle. Now, the older I get, the more I think about benefits of fitness that go above and beyond just looking good. Rather than just being worried about the effect of exercise on swimsuit season, I'm getting more appreciative of benefits like the brain boost you get from physical activity, the increased mobility and balance, and of course, the improvement in longevity. But when it comes to longevity, what part of fitness gives you the most benefit? Well, it turns out that the answer is not necessarily lung size or flexibility or speed. Instead, a new study shows that the more muscle you have, the lower your risk of death. And in today's episode, we're going to find out why that is and what you can do about it. Now, in the study that I mentioned earlier, participants underwent tests to determine their muscle mass index, which is the amount of muscle relative to height. The investigators then used a follow-up survey to determine how many of these participants had died of natural causes and how muscle mass was related to death risk. Well, people with the highest levels of muscle mass were significantly less likely to have died than those with lower levels of muscle mass. So, in today's episode, we're going to talk about how muscle makes you live longer, whether you even need to do cardio at all, and how to maximize your muscle gain. Now, according to a study performed at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario, resistance training activates a muscle stem cell called a satellite cell. And then, in a process called gene shifting, these new cells cause the energy-generating components of your cell, called mitochondria, to rejuvenate. Now, the study author said that this process, after 6 months of twice-weekly strength exercise training, allows biochemical, physiological, and genetic signature of older muscles to be turned back by as much as 15 to 20 years. Other studies actually back this up, indicating that the type of high-intensity exercise you experience during strength training protects things like chromosomes. Now, chromosomes are a thread-like structure of nucleic acids and protein found in the nucleus of most living cells, and they carry genetic information in the form of genes. It appears that stimulating muscle increases the production of telomerase, which allows for ongoing maintenance of genetic information and cellular integrity in those chromosomes. In addition, exercise triggers the production of antioxidants, which boost the ability of the body to withstand environmental stressors such as pollutants and toxins. Gaining muscle through resistance training can also stave off cognitive decline. In one study, women between the ages of 70 and 80 who were experiencing mild cognitive impairment were put through 60-minute weight training classes 2 times a week for 26 weeks. Lifting weights not only improved their memory, but also staved off neurodegenerative disorders, dementia, depression, and also improved attention span and ability to resolve conflicts. Amazingly, studies show that elderly people can still experience the benefits of gene shifting, even if they've never lifted weights before, as well as an increased production of growth hormone and testosterone that comes from building muscle. So, are you ready to increase your lifespan through muscle gain yet? Well, here's the good news. I have plenty of episodes over at quickanddirtytips.com that tell you exactly how. So I'd recommend you start with the episode How to Build Muscle and then move on to 10 Tips to Build Muscle Fast. And in the show notes for this episode, episode number 179 over at Quick and Dirty Tips, I'll link to those. Now, with all this talk about strength training, aren't you putting yourself at a cardiovascular deficit by not including cardio in your workouts? Well, the fact is, this isn't true. First, a recent study called Strength Training Increases Endurance Time to Exhaustion looked at the effect of strength training on the ability to perform endurance exercise. Before and after 8 weeks of strength training, subjects performed a maximal exercise test on a bicycle, and they bicycled to exhaustion. It was shown that strength training, even with minimal amounts of cardio training, actually enhanced the ability to cycle for long periods of time. In addition, in the Get Fit Guy episode, Weight Training is Just as Good as Cardio, I introduce another study entitled Resistance Training to Momentary Muscle Failure Improves Cardiovascular Fitness. In that study, resistance training to muscular failure resulted in the same type of cardiovascular adaptations you'd get if you were to, say, go out for a long run. This included a better ability to buffer lactic acid and increased density of those mitochondria that I talked about earlier. I also discuss many of the cardio benefits of weight training in my episode, Is Weightlifting Bad for Your Heart?, which I'll also link to in the show notes for this episode. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't add any cardio into a strength training program, and here's why. Adding high-intensity interval training may actually increase your rate of muscle gain. So even though many exercise enthusiasts believe that adding cardio to a weight training session could decrease rate of muscle gain or your ability to gain muscle at all, that's simply not true. And a new study, which I'll link to in the show notes, shows that doing sprinting or high-intensity interval training at the same time as you're doing weight training actually increases strength and increases what's called muscle synthesis. So rather than just going to the gym and lifting weights, you could instead combine intense cardio with your weight training. For example, the following circuit would work quite nicely for the ultimate combination of muscle, cardio, and longevity. Start with a warm-up and then progress to, number 1, 8 reps of an overhead dumbbell press. Then 8 reps of a barbell squat. Then 8 pull-ups or pull-downs. And finally, 8 dumbbell walking lunges per leg. Do each of the exercises that I just described in a very slow and controlled fashion, taking anywhere from 3 to 10 seconds to go up and down. That'll help with the cardio component. Next, move on to a 60-second all-out sprint on a bike, a treadmill, or an elliptical trainer. That's the high-intensity interval component. Now, you simply go through that circuit that I just described, those 4 exercises with the cardio at the end, about 3 to 5 times, with about 1 minute of rest after each circuit. Now, of course, you'd get pretty bored if you lived to 100 years old doing that same exercise routine over and over again. So it's just fine to mix things up. And to make sure you do that, I promise to continue to give you new exercises and workouts to keep things fresh. So just keep on listening to the Get Fit Guy podcast for the latest in cutting-edge exercise research and innovation. Now, if you have more questions about how to live longer by gaining muscle, then head over to facebook.com/getfitguy, where we always have great follow-up discussions after each episode is released. And until next time, I'm the Get Fit Guy asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.